So we're here with Zach Nelson from NetSuite. Zach, you've been the CEO for now 10 years?
10 years, almost exactly.
Almost exactly. And it's been an interesting ride from just even looking at the stock price. A lot of success, a little bump in 2009, and then a really steady climb since then. What's driving the business these days?
Well, I think there are two things driving the business. One certainly is within NetSuite's control, and that's our own business strategy. You know, when the company was founded, we set out to do something very different, and that was to build an application designed to run a business. Most applications are built designed to run a department, an accounting application, a sales application. Then you have to tie all those things together. Our idea was very different. Let's try to build a single application that you could run end-to-end business processes in. The second big idea we had was to then deliver that application over the internet. And it turns out both of those ideas are now coming together in the customer's minds as people move towards cloud computing. So those very early bets, one on a product strategy of a system to run a business, not a department, and secondly, the ability to deliver that application purely over the internet has now basically become where the entire world is going in terms of running their own applications.
You have kind of a two-pronged strategy. One is the standard suite and one is the One World suite. Can you talk a little bit about how that business differentiates and which is driving?
Yeah, the interesting thing is we have many different flavors of NetSuite. We have a version of NetSuite designed for software companies. We have a version of NetSuite designed for distributors, for manufacturers. But at the end of the day, it's still all one single code base. We just configure it differently depending on the type of industry you're in. So that's a very powerful feature of the product in terms of addressing the needs of different types of businesses. In terms of the markets that we go after, you know, when we started the company and we built the first versions of NetSuite, we could only serve the needs of smaller, mid-sized businesses. Over time, we've been at this for 13 years now, we've added features and functions that allow us to scale to the world's largest companies, and that's where this product, NetSuite One World, comes in. That effectively allows you to run a multinational business in a single application. And so One World is really about our strategy to move up market. In the US, multinationals tend to be very large organizations, and we think One World's the best solution in the world to run a multinational. It's better than SAP, it's better than Oracle, it's better than anything out there today for a whole bunch of reasons. And then the standard NetSuite product really addresses the needs of single entity businesses in a multitude of industries.
So in terms of moving forward with One World, is it about how many markets you're in and adding the next market? Is that kind of the goal for?
Well, yeah, with One World, the challenge with One World is not just localizing the user interface, not just localizing the UI into Japanese or Chinese. That's actually probably the simplest part of the challenge. The real challenge is how do you localize the application for the business processes in those countries? How do you localize for local tax in the Philippines versus Brazil versus Tokyo? So we've actually spent about the last 3 years doing not just the UI localization, but more importantly, the back office, tax, shipping, ERP process localization. And we today have deep localizations for more than 50 countries. And we continually add them as we find a new multinational that says, hey, I need to have to support my requirements in Israel. Boom, we go out and we build the local tax compliance for that market, and then we have it for all of our customers. So we're well down the road to the compliance and tax aspects of localizing a product for multinationals like One World.
Mm-hmm. So I think you've been quoted as saying that if someone creates a new value-added tax tomorrow, the next day it'll be supported by NetSuite. Is that still the promise? Well,
that's the beauty of actually, this is one of the interesting things about what we've done with cloud computing, and that was in the early days when you'd have traditional on-premise vendors say, oh, NetSuite, you know, cloud applications aren't as powerful as on-premise applications. In fact, our experience has been the exact opposite is true. They're far more powerful than traditional applications, and the case you cite, the ability to update tax codes in real time is a great example. You know, when the downturn happened in 2009, for example, the UK reduced their value-added tax. I don't know, it went from 15% to 7.5% or something. So all of these companies that were on Sage in the UK had to wait for Sage to do a fix and then them to hand it to each customer, and then the customer had to install it to make it run. In the case of NetSuite, we changed it in our system, and it was available to all of our customers at that instant. And so this is really the power of cloud computing. Companies sharing these resources don't just get a cost benefit from sharing those resources, they also get functionality faster. And I was in cloud computing before I came to NetSuite. I was at McAfee, and my last job at McAfee was to take our products and turn them into cloud services. McAfee.com actually was the first IPO in the SaaS space back in 1999. That was where we took our B2C products and turned them into internet services, as an example. And what I learned in that process is exactly this, is that I felt that the cloud was going to be the future because customers got functionality so much more quickly and transparently that this would be the ultimate way to consume software. And that's effectively what you're seeing.
Right. So, Oracle's a $100 billion company, SAP in the 80, 90 billion. Your company's in the 4 billion range.
Yeah. Still
Pretty remarkable for its run. But doesn't that limit your ability to actually support all of those individual markets? Is there a law of diminishing returns that after you get to 120 or 130 markets that it's time to slow it down?
No, this is another place where the cloud comes in that makes it actually easier to service a global marketplace. Because in the old model, to service that market, you had to have physical humans in every one of those countries, installing software, tweaking it, maintaining it, upgrading it. The beauty of NetSuite is those 120 countries come to us. They open a browser and come to our systems. So the fact that we're distributing this on the internet not only has benefits for our customers, it actually has enormous benefits for our business model. It has an enormous benefit from the fact that we don't need people in every different country in the world to serve people in those countries. That's just one example of the value that accrues not just to customers, but to us. And our business model. The other important thing about the business model is, as I mentioned, we have a single code base. So all of our R&D investment, while they have bigger R&D organizations, every dime of R&D that we spend goes into a single product. They spend much more than we do on R&D, but it's across thousands and thousands of products. So that's the other way. That's another huge benefit for NetSuite and other cloud providers, is you can accelerate this technology and the functionality of this technology far more quickly than people like Sage or Microsoft that have hundreds of products. They have to pick and choose what they're going to do on this product or that product. All of our R&D goes against a single product.
Right. So in terms of what's driving new customers towards you, the suite can be purchased obviously as components or a large set of components. Are there particular ones that are driving the business right now?
Absolutely. So NetSuite can, even though it is a single application designed to run a business, companies often use pieces of that application. They may have other applications for a variety of reasons. So there are two key drivers to our business. One is, obviously, 100% of our customers use our back office functionality, our ERP functionality. Of that 100% that use ERP, 70% use some other aspect of the suite. They could use our e-commerce capabilities. They could use our Salesforce automation capabilities. They could use our support capabilities. So people come to us for the suite, but it's an ERP-driven suite. And the takeaway from that is that at the end of the day, ERP is where the data resides that you run your business on. You run your business on orders, invoices, shipments, payments, and there's one system that's in. It's called the ERP system. You want all the other systems to have access to that data, and that's really the idea behind the suite. So yeah, it's a very widely used set of functions and features, but driven off the back office. The other aspect that's driving our business is somewhat unrelated to NetSuite, but what's happening in our customer base. And when people talk about cloud computing, they think it's a technology trend. Cloud computing is actually a much larger business trend. And what I've seen over the last few years is that companies not in the technology business have realized they are cloud companies. They have to figure out how to use the cloud to deliver their services. And it's not just virtual services, it's physical product. And I went to the Philippines when I began to talk about this, every company being a cloud company, tried to think of the most absurd examples of what that means. I said, if you're a cattle rancher, you're a cloud company. If you're a florist, you're a cloud company. And in Manila, two hands went up. One was a florist, and one was the sole producer of Kobe beef in Manila. And both of them said, exactly, that's why we're using NetSuite, is because we need to use the cloud to run our businesses. The Kobe beef producer wanted to track his cattle in the field, wanted to see which ones are sick, wanted to see RFID them to see where they were, bring them in, and similar sorts of business processes for the florist. So I think that is the other major trend, is the fact that every company is trying to figure out how to retool their business and their relationships with the customer to use the cloud. And in so doing, they have to completely re-architect their infrastructure. Hence, they need to replace Great Plains or SAP with a internet-aware, cloud-aware system like NetSuite to enable their business vision.
So for a Kobe beef producer, you would have to have some sort of application that tracks when cows are late for their spa appointments, right?
Well, yeah, for their beer and their massage, absolutely. And that subtle example is one more very important feature of the product that is used by every company, and that is the ability to customize NetSuite. You know, if you look at NetSuite, in various markets, we have 80, 90% of the functionality every company needs to run their business. However, it's that last 10% that really makes the difference in a business. So when does the cow get his stout beer and his rice meal, and when does he get massaged? That's not built into our system.
You haven't thought of that one?
And we haven't thought of that. And there's a million of those, right? A million of those business applications. So with our Suite Cloud platform, they can customize the system very easily to address those edge cases that are very important in their business. And in my mind, the customization capabilities of NetSuite ultimately are what enable NetSuite to beat the SAPs and Microsofts of the world, because those applications are completely non-customizable. And if you customize them once and never touch them again. In the case of NetSuite, you can customize this application until the cows come home in this example, and over and over and over again, and it's built to be customized. So it's a very important feature of the product, and I think it's ultimately the winning argument for NetSuite and the cloud.
Okay. So there's still a matter of acceptance of SaaS as a delivery mechanism, and every year Information Week does a survey to see where people are at with their enterprise applications, and we ask them how they feel about their on-premise versus SaaS applications. So this is the first year that we've actually seen a slight retreat in the number of people saying they use SaaS applications. It went from 43% down to 38%. So do you see that in the market? Or do you see a little hesitance?
I don't know. That seems kind of strange when you look at just the growth of the cloud software vendors versus others. So, no, I think we hit the cloud tipping point probably 2 years ago, and I believe the global downturn actually accelerated the move to the cloud, because when the downturn happened, people had to cost reduce infrastructure. They went to the cloud for cost reduction. It did reduce cost, but what they also saw was an enormous productivity benefit. These applications actually worked. Their employees were happy to use them, and that's why you've seen companies like NetSuite come out of the downturn growing like gangbusters. So I think the opposite is, at least in our experience, and when you look at our numbers, certainly is true.
Right. I'm not sure whether it's correlation or causality, but in the same survey, there was a market uptick in the concern for basically data safety. It went from 28% saying they were concerned about that in 2011 to 36% saying they were concerned about it in 2012. Are you still getting, that's been kind of the major pushback for a long time for SaaS vendors. Has it been for NetSuite?
Well, it's changed over time. You know, when I started here 10 years ago, that was the first question, was the security of data. Today, frankly, for us, it's the last question. You know, I think when companies look at that question in a generic sense, yes, we're very concerned about the security of our data in applications that are off our premises. That said, go down to the second derivative and say, which vendors do you trust in regard to this? They start to look at the established players like NetSuite, like a Salesforce, who have built very large businesses with lots and lots of customers, where securing that data is a core value and a core competence. So, and I would agree with that. I would be reticent to go put my core data with a company that's, you know, just getting started. I'd feel a lot more comfortable putting my data with a company like NetSuite that's been here for longer than 10 years, that's publicly traded, all of those things. And I think the other cut of that, there tends to be, different markets have different sensitivities to that question, you know. And so there are some verticals have a very different perspective than others on security. Everyone, of course, is worried about the security of their applications. But there's also an industry cut, you know, financial services, know your customer rules. There's actual legal requirements around that. Government, DOD, you know, they're not going to let a lot of that information off their premises. So, so there are a variety of different ways to cut the security question. But by and large, I think you've seen, when you look at a trusted, established vendor like a NetSuite, it's less of an issue.
Well, and there was good news in that survey too for SaaS vendors. We asked about basically approval of the applications from the SaaS vendors versus on-premises application. And it turns out that people like their SaaS applications a little bit better than their on-premise ones.
Yeah.
So that was not the case a year ago.
Well, it's interesting. When I started at NetSuite 10 years ago, we've sort of went through all these years of many myths that were propagated. One of the first myths was, believe it or not, people wanted applications that looked like Windows, not like the web. And now, if you showed anybody a Windows application, they would run screaming. They want applications that look like the web. And so you've seen a whole sea change in not just behave, but in the look and feel. And then, of course, the behavior is also, something that they're more accustomed to, how these applications, when you click on something, something happens that you expect to have happen. Whereas I remember using old SAP machines to do a purchase order, you had to click on this pixel to make that thing submit, sort of crazy application requirements like that. So yeah, the technology's evolved, it's gotten much more intuitive. You see things like Apple driving that standard higher and higher, and vendors like NetSuite and others have to respond to that. But we're in much better shape to respond to that than people who are sort of a legacy Windows client-server architecture user interface.
And now that it looks like Windows will be, I don't know, a tenth of the user interfaces that people might use.
Well, I'm still shocked that Windows still exists at the level that it exists. But when you hit the wall very fast and hard. And someday Windows will hit the wall very fast and very hard.
Right. So you're obviously doing, as you mentioned, pushing up into the enterprise. I think Qualcomm is a named customer. Is that right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about any others successes there, or other folks that you are proud of?
Yeah, so our move-up market really has been driven by the One World product that we introduced back in April of 2008, which for the first time enables real-time financial consolidation of multinational corporations. So you can have English sub running as if it were its own company, the Japanese sub running as if it were its own company, but then in real time being able to look across all of those subsidiaries with their results. And that's really what's driving companies like Qualcomm to look at us. Land O'Lakes is another great name that's been added. There are a whole host of these companies that have become customers of the One World product. And the interesting thing about how they're deploying that application is in what we call two-tier ERP. In many of those large companies, they've spent, whatever, $100 million on SAP, right? And the corporate infrastructure runs pretty well on that. But what happens beneath that in the subsidiaries, it's very hard to jam into a $100 million subsidiary an instance of SAP designed for a $100 billion company. Some people try it, most people don't. So what happens in those subsidiaries is they create a Tower of Babel by putting a variety of different systems in each of those countries. So in the UK, they might put Sage. Australia, they might put MYOB. In Japan, they might put Yayoi, all these low-end accounting products. Then it's almost impossible to consolidate those results on a meaningful basis. What you're seeing happen at the Qualcomms, at the Procter & Gamble's, at the Land O'Lakes is they're saying, let's begin to put in that second tier a standard platform. And that standard platform is quickly becoming NetSuite because they can run all of those subsidiaries on a single product. They can give the local control of those subsidiaries to the country managers, but they can look across them in a common view because it's still running in a single system. So that's really what is happening in this market is we're getting a standardization on the second tier, the subsidiary tier in this generation. And what we saw in the last generation was the standardization of the corporate tier. And that corporate tier is going to stay in place.
Right. So you announced some partnerships recently with Deloitte. I think it was last year with Accenture. Those are the folks that have been talking about that strategy as well.
Yes.
Are they kind of driving that part of the business for you?
Well, they're definitely, yeah, our work with Deloitte, Accenture, Wipro, a whole host of systems integrators is around this notion of a two-tier deployment of NetSuite in conjunction with whatever the corporate standard is, SAP or Oracle. And so that's a very big piece of our work with those companies. We've had great success with Accenture. We went live with our first joint Deloitte customer about 3 months after we established the relationship. So yeah, you're seeing great traction in two-tier ERP in very large enterprises.
We've even seen it on some of the Oracle World advertising, and we see that you're a keynoter for Oracle. Is that a hint at what you're going to talk about?
Well, so yes, I am keynoting Open World. And the topic there is a variety of things. NetSuite was really started by the guy who started Oracle. So Larry Ellison's a founder, majority shareholder here. Evan Goldberg, our CTO, was also co-founder. So there's a lot. I'm an ex-Oracle. I'm an ex-Oracle person. So there's an enormous amount of Oracle DNA right from the top throughout the organization. We have partnership with Oracle on a bunch of fronts. Our entire application is built on the Oracle stack, Oracle database, Oracle server, Oracle hardware, Exadata, Exalogic, two products we've purchased to scale the data center. And we have many, many joint customers. And so at Open World, we're going to talk more specifically about the Oracle NetSuite opportunity in enabling customers to be successful with Oracle at corporate and standardizing with NetSuite in their second tier. So we're very excited about the two-tier opportunity with Oracle.
So does that mean a joint sales effort in some cases?
You know, I think both Oracle and NetSuite feel it's really important to sell our own products. These are complex environments. So, but I think, you know, you look at the history of the companies, we're basically going to partner for the success of our joint customers, of which, you know, Qualcomm is a great example. It's largely Oracle headquarters and now NetSuite and subsidiaries. So it's a great test case. Land O'Lakes as well. Great test case for how we can work together to make our customers successful.
So meanwhile, some of your competition has been talking about going down market. SAP pretty famously said named you, called you out, said they were going to come after your market. How do you view that?
Well, SAP has definitely done a lot of talk. They have not had very much success. And frankly, I don't believe no technology ever moves down market. Technology always moves from the bottom up, not from the top down. And there are a whole bunch of reasons for that. Some of them are technical reasons. But as importantly are business model reasons. You know, every time I move up market, my margins expand. I get more profitable. When companies move from high-end enterprise down, their margins shrink. No business really likes to shrink its margins, and nobody does it voluntarily. So I think it's a lot of talk. I don't believe that they will really ever come into our marketplace. We, however, will go into their marketplace, and it's driven by product functionality and business model. So obviously they're very nervous about what NetSuite's doing. They see the trend that technology moves from the bottom up, not from the top down, and they're trying desperately to stop that from happening, but history has shown it's almost impossible to stop that.
Right. So who worries you?
You know, the interesting thing is this was a complex application to build, and still nobody's built an application design to run a business. So our business strategy is they always build applications to run departments, and then they turn to IT and they say, tie all this stuff together, which never works, right? So our business strategy is very differentiated. We've also been at it for 13 years. And when you look at an ERP-driven sale, it is largely a functionality sale. If you don't have demand-based inventory replenishment and the customer needs it, they're not going to buy your product. Doesn't matter if the bits come from Mars or if they come on a disk or they come from NetSuite. So it's a functionally driven sale, and it takes time to build that functionality. And we've been at this for 13 years. So anybody who's going to compete with us, they have lots of problems. First of all, they have to build a complex application and make it actually work properly. Then they have to deliver the bits over the internet instead of shipping a disk. Those are two very hard problems to solve. And they have to catch up with 13 years of investment in a product. And so therein lies the problem. It took us 13 years to build NetSuite. How long will it take anybody else to build NetSuite? 13 years. And guess what? In that 13-year period, we'll be 26 years into it. So this is the nature of disruptive technology. If you make the right bet and stay the course for a long time, it's very hard for anybody to catch up with you.
So in terms of making bets, a lot of folks have said that NetSuite was a little late to the adding social capabilities to its platform. And I think your answer at the time was, you know, we're making sure that we're supporting that value-added tax the next day after it was implemented. Right. Is that the right strategy, and is the partnership with Yammer still the right way to go?
Yeah, our concept, I don't believe we were late to social. I think our idea with social was never to own the end-user display of data, right? It was to plug into end-user social displays. And Yammer is one of those. So when you look at what happens in a NetSuite account, a lot of social activity happens in a NetSuite account. A sales rep places an order. A customer files a trouble ticket. A contact is created. All of these, it is the social hub for our customers who use the suite. It's their business backbone. And so what we decided to do was say, let's stream data out of NetSuite and get it to the right person at the right time through whatever device they're using. Some guys use email. Send them an email alert when an order is created or one of their customers is on the website, crawling the website. Or send them a Yammer message. It could just as easily be send them a chatter message. It could just as easily be send them a Jive message. So our view is really to be agnostic about the social tool that is in front of the user, because we're not going to win that game. Somebody's going to win that game, or several people might win that game. However, we're going to socialize the data within NetSuite in such a way that when an action happens, we get that information to the right person at the right time. So the things we're focused on is how do we securely identify where that information is going and then put it into the device that customer is using. So I think we're right where we want to be in terms of our strategy on social, and I think it's the right strategy for us.
Okay. Maybe it was a little unfortunate that Yammer was the first shot out of the box and then got bought by Microsoft.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we work with Microsoft today, right? We do email alerts. Everybody uses Office. So again, it doesn't really affect our belief in the strategy. Our competitors may be some of the things that we stream data into, but our customers are using those. So that's the more important thing. How do we make sure our customers are being successful with our product and we live in those environments? So the Yammer partnership was great in the sense of it hardened our approach to, we call it Suite Social, these activity streams out of NetSuite. So we had a great partner in hardening that activity stream, getting their DNA to understand what's happening on the end user front. So I think it was a win-win for both of us, and the fact that Microsoft bought them really doesn't change our strategy.
Okay. So all your customers, I'm sure, are equally important to you, but some are a little bit more important. You have a close relationship with the Oakland A's. How's that going, and are you happy with the season this year?
Well, so for those of us that know NetSuite, they know that Billy Beane of the Oakland A's is on our board, and we really put Billy on our board before we went public because I felt he embodied the ethos and the approach of our customers. If you look at the small and mid-sized market, they are typically the small market team competing with the Yankees of their industry, competing with Procter & Gamble, competing with very large companies. So the whole Moneyball philosophy of how you run a business differently is exactly what our customers try to accomplish. And what we try to do with NetSuite is enable them to run that business differently. We really view our tool as a way for them to execute their business vision. And that's what we're all about, is enabling their business vision. So, so the combination of Billy and the A's and the Moneyball philosophy was completely synced with how we believe our customers run their businesses. So, so that was one aspect of the relationship. Of course, the A's are also a customer. They use us on the CRM side. And so that's going very well. And I can't really take credit for the A's incredible success. I'll take a small bit of credit because we always help our customers be successful. But it's been a great association for both of our brands. I think for our brand in particular because of the tight relationship to how our businesses run their business. And so we've loved our relationship with the A's.
Okay. Zach Nelson of NetSuite, thanks for joining me. I'm Art WIttmann.